Sweet. All right, jumping in. Well, Dan, thank you so much for the kind intro. The sentiment is absolutely echoed. Um, when I met you and Shannon and the whole team, it's just a wonderful community, and that's why I like to invest time in being able to do this. So I'm thrilled to be able to present today. Thank you for the support. I operate a recruiting content company and recruiting agency called Building the Talent Machine. And my mission is to upskill and uplift the recruiting industry. So I'm excited to do that today and talk a little bit about quality of hire in the agentic AI world. Now, we've heard a little bit about quality of hire already, and I know Tim has some fantastic ideas. So I'm excited to offer a little bit of a different perspective. In the chat today, we'll talk a little bit about the foundations of quality of hire, point out a few of its flaws and some ideas around how we can move forward as recruiters when we navigate the conversation with our executives around quality of hire. The point of this talk is to not give you an agentic AI solution for how quality of hire will be measured. So if you're looking for that as a tactical takeaway from this next 20 minutes, I would encourage you to leave. But if you do want to open up the dialogue and question why we talk about quality of hire as recruiters, let's jump in. All right. So when I think about hiring, perfect is the enemy of good. The world is smaller than we think, and there is no one right way to hire. These principles have guided me in hiring for publicly traded, private equity, and venture-backed startups. So take what I say with a grain of salt. When we think about agentic AI, right now, these are our hiring managers' expectations, and this is the reality that we've seen from LLMs to date. I'm a little disappointed in agentic AI now that we are on the dawn of 3 years since ChatGPT was launched. Is anyone else just kind of bummed that we're still living in this existence? I love Hire Easy. I love AI sourcing tools. I'm in ChatGPT every day. I'm also a dad. And when I give my toddlers instructions in the morning and in the evening, and then I spend 8 hours a day giving very similar prompt engineering instructions to ChatGPT, I'm feeling a little crazy. So I'm excited for the future of recruiting with AI. We're just not quite there yet. So how did we get here? We talk about quality of hire as if it's something tangible. Well, the reality is it's not. This article was published by Sherm 10 years ago saying quality of hire is the holy grail of recruiting. But whose holy grail? Keep in mind, this was 10 years ago, and we still don't have an answer. Now, there are a lot of brilliant minds across the recruiting and HR industry, from folks like Jenny Dearborn, Josh Burson, Lou Adler, and my buddy Tim Sackett, who have talked about quality of hire for the last decade or more. And companies like Ashby and Crosscheck and Smart Recruiters and Searchlight have had wonderful white papers and theses around quality of hire. But it's a problem that no one's solving. And do you know why? Because there's no universal definition of quality of hire. All of these peoples and companies have their own formula. And here's the problem. The boardroom, the C-suite, they look to hire simplifiers, not overcomplicators. And quality of hire metrics and the formulas and the unique equations are one of the most confusing things. So why would we bolt our wagon to the horse of a metric that doesn't have a universal definition? And we wonder why recruiting doesn't have a seat at the table. Well, the chairs keep changing. So when we have executives that come in from engineering and marketing and finance and sales, they bring their own understanding of quality of hire with them. So when we talk about it, we don't have a universal understanding when we're working with our executive stakeholders. So how is agentic AI going to solve that? Now, what is quality of hire? Is it a metric like Net Promoter Score? Is it an operations tool like Agile and Scrum? Or is it more of a philosophy like DevOps? If you asked 20 different recruiters, whether it's one of these 3 ideas or something different, you could get 20 different answers and we could debate it for hours. It might be really fun, but it's not effective and it doesn't impact our life as recruiters for the value we deliver to the business, which is a service. And we keep talking about HR wanting a seat at the table. So why hasn't the CHRO, why haven't we seen the HR industry define this quality of hire metric? Instead, it's weaponized against recruiters because it has the word hire in it. In reality, it has nothing to do with recruiting. Every other business group within a company has a top line metric that can be explained to the executive. Where's recruiting's? Now, when it comes to thinking about quality of hire, if you are a head of talent and you were talking to your head of sales or your chief revenue officer and asked about the quality of sales and tied that metric to the performance of an account executive in a pre-sales motion, they would laugh at you in your face. Yet, we as recruiters allow our chief human resources officers to hold us accountable to a metric that we are not responsible for, the post-hire outcome of an individual. Now, why does quality of hire even matter to recruiters? Because we've allowed ourselves to be told it does. When we look at what matters to the business, it's a few things. It's revenue impact, cost efficiency, and time to fill for business critical roles. There's a lot of talk about time not being an adequate measure for recruiting, and I will argue that every day. Time matters. It is one of the most important inputs we have in the service that we provide to businesses. Why? Because the goal is to deliver value to shareholders. And this chart displays the median age of companies at their IPO. And what you can see here is over time, it has increased. And that means investors aren't happy. They want to see a faster return on investment. So it's our job in a competing marketplace when products are launching and we have new tools emerging in the market, it's more competitive than ever to deliver value to the business the best way we can. And time is one of your most valuable inputs as a recruiter. All right, now, AI really wants a seat at the table right now when it comes to quality of hire. And it comes down to a few things. Most importantly, seeing the forest through the trees. Let's talk a little bit about talent mapping. How can AI help us as recruiters hire the best and retain individuals? We can do research. There are a lot of great talent researchers out there that can help us see the big picture. When it comes down to research and talent mapping, Agentic AI currently is fantastic for delivering some of the time-consuming tasks it used to take to develop a hit list for where you're going to source from. And when we look at some of the research now, there are emerging tools and emerging strategies and faster data around where talent pools are hiding. So what do I mean? For example, if you were building a payments app, you might source candidates from Stripe. That's fairly obvious. But I bet there's some folks that have worked at Stripe that don't have the same backgrounds as some of those folks that you're sourcing. So when it comes down to Agentic AI doing data and research against talent pools, it can identify candidates with candidate and product market fit that don't come from the traditional demographic measures of how we source, which are often location, school, company worked for, and job title. Another way Agentic AI can help the post-hire outcome is giving more people a shot. What do I mean by that? Right now, AI interviewing tools can interview a higher volume of candidates than a recruiter can. And me, as a recruiter working recs, am grateful for this opportunity because I know it can tap into hidden talent pools and historically underrepresented groups. I know how much time is in a day. If I'm cranking interviews, I can probably complete maybe 10 to 12. I've had those 15 interview days, and that's not where I'm doing my best work or my best listening when it comes to candidate experience. But on the back end, if I have an AI interview bot that says, hey, I interviewed 100 more candidates, and here are 3 folks you should consider, that helps us deliver more value to our stakeholders. And our hiring managers are then going to be able to build potentially more diverse teams because we're not sourcing and indexing on those profiles that historically get to the shortlist. Now, one of the things we're seeing in the market currently as we talk on this same slide is seeing the forest through the trees. Last week, it was announced that Smart Recruiters is being acquired. This is really exciting. I love Smart Recruiters. I used it 8 years ago. The team there is wonderful. They do a great job in the community. And one of the reasons I like Smart Recruiters is because I love their net hiring score as a recruiting level quality of hire measure. We're not talking about lever, we're talking about Smart Recruiters. That was a funny slip. All right. And why is the net hiring score as a quality of hire measure effective? Because it ties closely into their hiring velocity framework, which can be directly tied into workforce planning, headcount planning, and recruiter satisfaction. Now, if you're not familiar with these white papers around Smart Recruiters philosophy, I'd highly encourage you to check it out, and I can happily send you some of the links. It's a framework I've adopted and used while using the Smart Recruiters ATS and using other ATSs. It's just smart. It makes sense. But I have a prediction. Now that Smart Recruiters is being required by a workforce management company, I don't think we're going to hear much more about quality of hire from Smart Recruiters. I bet we won't hear a word from them at all because workforce planning has no business talking about it for one reason. We lack a universal definition. Let's keep moving. So who else loves to talk about quality of hire? The people analytics department. And second to recruiting, they are dramatically trying to prove their value to the business. Now, this is very tempting to reverse engineer the competencies of top performers to predict the performance of candidates in a pipeline. And we do this all the time by reverse engineering competency-based interview questions. But it fails to assess the number one variable in post-hire outcomes. And I bet if you've been around for a minute, you know what I'm about to say. So I'll ask it again. What is the number one variable that impacts someone's performance at work? You've got it. Human motivation. Quality of hire isn't an internal measure. It's an external observation. Right now, people analytics teams are reverse engineering the performance of existing top performers and then telling the CHRO how to reverse engineer that into the hiring process. They want to reverse engineer individual questions and competencies, but this is a fool's errand. It fails to assess motivation. We don't talk about candidate motivation enough. And there's a problem with this. The reason we don't value human motivation in the hiring process is because it's less quantifiable. And when you work in tech startups like me, who runs tech startups? Who are our executive stakeholders? Science and math folks. They love quantifiable variables. So this is why we overcomplicate these whiteboard theses, because people analytics is hard at work trying to come up with a formula to reach their stakeholder. And their stakeholder aligns on concepts around math and science. And you and I both know that hiring is an art and a science. Even if people analytics were able to accurately predict the post-hire outcome by reverse engineering top performance, is that really what we want? No. Motivation can't be modeled. We use surveys and stay interviews and exit interviews. But here's the kicker. All of that data that is turned in from conversational information, our language, into quantifiable dashboards and numbers and charts all rely on trust. And currently, if we were to train an AI model and turn it over to an agent, there is no stopgap to guarantee what employees are saying is the truth. We've talked a little bit about the human in the loop, and the human in the loop must be the voice of reason when we talk about quality of hire in the AI years, particularly as we move to agents in the HR team. Currently, the most common misunderstanding of AI is that its innovation and user creativity is exceeding its current maturity. Earlier, I expressed my disappointment in LLMs. We're 3 years into ChatGPT, and it's still not the science fiction future that we hoped for. And the problem is, there are people that are not as hands-on as some of us who believe it to be more mature than its current nascent stage. The most common question I get from CHROs in startups right now that I'm consulting with is, my CEO is prioritizing AI across the org, and I need to automate any manual task. This is frightening because we're simply not there yet. And a more important question to ask is, do we want to be? This is where the post-hire, quality of hire, agentic AI formula and theory breaks down. Picture this scenario. It's Friday, it's 3 p.m., and your top engineer resigns. What is the manager going to do? They're going to call the recruiter and say, post the rec, I need to interview next week. They're certainly not going to log into an HRIS and complete a detailed survey to train an LLM model about why the person quit. They're focused on what they need to ship in order to meet the remit of their department. Best case scenario is they get approval to counteroffer their top engineer, but we all know the data on that. All right. So when we talk about quality of hire, we've talked a little bit about being a whiteboard thesis, and I've shared that it's a fool's errand. But why did we get here in the first place? Because HR folks love projects, and one of the biggest projects in HR is predicting churn. And AI isn't magic. It's outrunning its maturity like we discussed. And we're not going to automate everything in the next year or two, so we need to focus on what we can measure as recruiters. So what can we measure? We talked a little bit about the smart recruiters theory. These are great recruiting operational tools that'll help you think like a talent mapper and a talent management professional. You can do more research. You can implement an index on time to work faster. You can reverse engineer your pipelines and think like an SDR. You can get creative about your outreach strategy. And when it comes to being accountable to the post-hire performance of the folks we place, let's just use a 90-day performance ramp as a measure. This is actually industry standard for agency placements. And right now I'm seeing more startups index on niche agencies to place key roles. We can focus on net hiring score, hiring manager satisfaction, candidate experience. We're talking a lot about candidate enablement. When you index on the experience of the individual, you're able to draw out their motivation and make a better recommendation to your hiring managers on who deserves to earn the offer. It's also important to remember to keep it simple, sourcer. Don't overcomplicate things with whiteboard theses and equations that take longer than 2 minutes with your CEO in the elevator to explain. We over-indexed on the art and science of hiring. And now we're just in this period of confusion. So I would encourage you to go back to the art and leverage with your stakeholders who have more science and technology sensibilities, the importance of human behavior and connection, because we all know that great recruiting is influencing human behavior. And you can control what you can. That includes things like your sourcing strategy, your candidate experience, the relationship with hiring managers, The more clarity and simplification you can bring to your hiring managers, the more you'll be able to influence without authority and grow your career as a recruiter. And let's focus on measurable process metrics, not closed door debates. And what matters most when it comes to the post hire outcomes of our employees? Trust. Without trust, every quality of hire metric is suspect. And AI is not going to fix this. Tech won't fix this. Having a great employee experience and a strong quality of hire relies on understanding people, being able to influence the decision-making process of hiring managers, building trust on both sides, and being here for both candidates and hiring managers when it comes to advocating for the right skills and attributes needed to deliver value to shareholders. This is how you can upskill as a recruiter today. AI can help, but not on its own and not at the agentic level. And again, what is the fatal flaw of quality of hire? It lacks a universal definition. So I would have a rallying cry that maybe we as an industry and recruiters do what HR couldn't in earning a seat at the table and defining quality of hire with a universal definition. It's been 10 years since that article went out. So let's be craftsmen as recruiters and have a strong top line metric that the business deserves for the value we deliver. As we wrap up today, I want to remind you that quality of hire is a team effort, just like hiring. And just like agentic AI, it is only one part of the hiring process. We've over indexed, but we can stop here and innovate together.